Hello, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Sports Extra. Thank you for joining us for what is going to be our last show of the year. Tonight we have as always, excellent lineup for you. But today we have a guest who long-time viewers of the show will be familiar with. To my right, we are joined by sports expert and fan favorite Ali Mehdi. Ali Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sabeel. Pleasure to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you on and have your opinions. You always provide great insight. So let us start off our last show of the year with our top stories. Our lineup for today, we will be beginning by covering and discussing the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy that happened in Pakistan, a domestic tournament, which is always great to see. It is lovely to see when our local talent is given a platform to perform, especially within our nation itself. And we will be talking not only about the final and KPK's victory, and they're clinching their second title. We'll be talking about the different format, the day and night format which was introduced. We'll be talking about the broadcast quality and all the improvements that were made for this year's edition of the trophy. So that is what we will be beginning with. But our second story of the day will be some more cricketing action. We'll be talking about the Asian Under-19 championships that were happening in Dubai. We will be talking about Pakistan's journey. Unfortunately, it was cut short in the semi-finals and they were not able to reach the finals and not able to bring the trophy home, but an incredible performance nonetheless. And we'll be talking about how India were crowned champion, meaning now that they have won every edition, they have won 8 editions of this championship, and it goes to show that their youth structure is working. But there are positive notes for our nation as well, and we'll be recapping the tournament as a whole. What were the benefits of this for all the nations involved, especially our own? And our final story of the day, we'll be discussing football. And in football, we'll be discussing the EPL. Now, that's not only the games that took place this week, which we will obviously be covering. We'll be covering Chelsea's game. We'll be discussing Manchester City, Liverpool, and even last night's game for Manchester United. But we will be mainly looking to see what the table stands like right now and what we can look forward to in the new year, as this weekend will now host action for the second half of the season. So a lot of exciting things to look forward to. But with that, we will begin with our first story of the day, which is again cricket. It is the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy, and we have a wonderful package for you. Let's go take a look at that.
Defending champions Khyber Pakhtunkhwa won the prestigious Quaid-e-Azam Trophy 2021 after conquering Northern by 169 runs on the 5th day of the day-night final at National Stadium in Karachi, with the off-spinner Sajid Khan taking a 5-wicket haul to lead his team to the title. Northern, who was set a tough 384-run target on the final day, went down fighting, as they were bowled out for 214 in their second innings with 18.4 overs left in the final session of the match. Set to score a gigantic total, Northern had a fiery start. However, their momentum was soon broken as Iftikhar Ahmed removed the dangerous Herrera, who smacked 6 fours from 49 balls. He finished as the leading scorer of the season with 986 runs, a record aggregate in a first-class debut season by any Pakistani. Waqas Ahmed also took 2 wickets. Sajid took the last wicket of Mubassir Khan, as Khyber Pakhtunkhwa players erupted in joy, having won the country's premier first-class tournament. For Northern, opener Herrera, Faizan Riaz and Umar Amin were the standout batters. Iftikhar Ahmed was declared man of the match for his fine all-round show and was handed over 50,000 rupees. The winners Khyber Pakhtunkhwa were handed over the glittering trophy and a prize of 10 million rupees, while the runner-ups Northern went away with 5 million rupees and the runners-up trophy. Similarly, rupees 500,000 each was handed over to the best batsman Mohammad Herrera, best bowler Ali Usman with 43 wickets, best wicketkeeper Raheel Nazir, and Mubassir Khan, the player of the tournament.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a brilliant recap provided to you in that package, especially of the final that took place. Obviously, KPK were able to come out victorious. We did get a result with just under 20 overs to spare and a very well-deserved victory for KPK, but Northern, as was mentioned, did go down fighting. Before we discuss the final itself, let us discuss the overall tournament. So Ali Mehdi, I will now throw this to you. What did you make of this year's tournament overall? What did you think the improvements were? The broadcast quality is one that I particularly noticed quite a lot. The day-night format and how the tournament was organized. What are your overall thoughts of this and its success this year?
Well, Sabeel, first of all, I must say that a lot of credit has to be given to the Pakistan Cricket Board, who actually put on a very good show this season. This season, we saw that this was the second cycle of this new Quaid-e-Azam Trophy, which has come about, in which you have about 6 teams actually from each and every regional cricket playing, and actually the final actually took place in Karachi. But I think that this season, what happened is that you could see there were some major improvements from last year. Like you mentioned, the broadcast itself was a major factor. I thought huge improvements for that. It was very well. I thought the graphics were excellent on television. I thought the commentary, everything, whatever the media package put up by the PCB and also by Pakistan Television was a fantastic job. It was very exciting to watch. But the most important thing over here was, Sabeel, is that the quality of cricket. You see that the quality of cricket was exceptional. It was very competitive, and not in the final, but throughout the tournament. All the players were actually fighting very hard. You had some standout performers, and most of all, you're talking about the competitive cricket. Why? Because obviously you have some skillful players, but at the same time the pitch and the conditions were magnificent.
Yes, all very true. We need to be discussing all of those things. Now, again, credit to the PCB. They're doing a wonderful job in a lot of different areas, but this in particular, we saw the results on screen. Now let's move on to the final itself. What did you make of the final KP's victory? I think they've been dominant for a while now. Their setup is clearly working. So what did you make of the final itself, KPK's performance, and the setup that they have going on over there, as well as the players who you think maybe stood out and performed exceptionally well?
First of all, it was actually the two best teams of the tournament were playing. I mean, KPK and Northern were hands down the best two teams actually who made it to the final. They were exceptional. I mean, it was going to be a toss of the coin as to which team would actually prevail. But you could see the dominance of KPK, who actually were defending champions and actually played with a lot of flair and a lot of skill actually in this final too. It was very competitive in the first few days, but at the end, it was KPK who came out on top. When you talk about standard performers, I thought the biggest performer of this final has to be the captain Iftikhar Ahmed, who actually led very well, who actually took the mantle very well, scored 100 on the first day too, took KP in both innings. He did very well too, and he actually led from the front. Other than that, I thought Pakistan's very own spinner Sajid Khan actually performed extremely well, getting 5 wickets, leading KPK to victory. I thought he tweaked the ball very well, bowled in the right areas, really confused the batsmen, and he got some really good batsmen out Northern, especially getting my favorite player of the tournament, Hurera, who was the standout batsman of the tournament. He got him out too. So I mean, you talk about Sajid Khan, Iftikhar with standout performance from KPK. If you look at from Northern, Rohil Nazir has been a brilliant find, who's been very keeper of the tournament for Northern. Ali Usman, another one, but I think one who stands out was Ali Hurera, who hit a triple century a couple of weeks ago in the last game of the group stage, and then actually played very well in the final. And at one stage was taking the game to KPK, but at the end it was Sajid who found out. But overall, a fabulous final and some wonderful performances by the players mentioned.
Yeah, that's a very comprehensive recap, Ali Mehdi, as expected. So let us discuss a couple of points that you've mentioned. So obviously, Iftikhar comes in and deputizes as captain, does a tremendous job there. But there's something to be said about the system that enables players to come in, as if you would put it, as a conveyor belt of talent, which allows people to take on these different roles and succeed. So KPK has obviously done a very good job there, so credit due. But what do you see in the future, not just for KPK, but do you see other teams perhaps adopting their models? They've had a lot of success, especially with their younger players as well. They do seem to be producing quite a high standard of cricket, and we're all very glad for them. But is there a way we can replicate that in other parts of the nation as well, and how do you improve upon it?
No, what most of all is that you could see that the standard of cricket has really improved, Sabeel. Especially this cycle has been brilliant over the past 4 months. It was very hard-fought cricket, from all these teams. But you're talking about KPK over here, conveyor belt of talent. So many players who have come. Mohammad Wasim Jr. You talk about Iftikhar, who's now back in the ODI setup. Sajid Khan is another one. So they are producing a lot of players, who are actually coming into playing for the national team. At the end of the day, why do you the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy? Why is it so important? Because you want players from this first-class system coming into the national team, representing the national team, and on the international front too. So that's very important. But at the same time, other players have to actually, teams have to adopt the same model as KPK over here. They've been dominant for very hard-fought cricket too, producing a lot of players too. But they have to fight with the same grit too, and at the same play on these difficult wickets, especially on the Karachi wicket, which I must say PCB needs to be given a huge round of applause, because it was a very good wicket to play on, offering both for the batsmen and for the bowlers too. So I just think that this new setup, I think, which was introduced by this new management, has been brilliant. And going forward, I think that you are going to see a lot of big players emerging in the first class, from the first class to the international setup in the not too distant future.
Exactly right. We're hoping that this does produce the talent and that we can take on the international stage, and that is ultimately the point of domestic cricket. To improve it is to improve your international cricket in the long run. So when you compete against bigger teams, you are actually able to go out and give them a challenge and win trophies. So with that, let's move on to our segment recap for the Quaid-e-Azam Trophy. In our segment today, we discussed a variety of different things related to the trophy, not just the final, but the overall setup of the tournament. We spoke about mainly Sajid Khan, his performance. We talked about the keeper of the tournament being named. We also spoke about how even though Northern lost, there's a bright light in Herrera, and they do have other avenues as well to explore, to improve upon the system that KPK has now shown the nation that works. And overall, a very, very good tournament, with broadcast quality being at an all-time high. The PCB deserves all the credit in the world for putting on an amazing display of domestic cricket, and hopefully we will see more international stars being produced out of our own local circuits. But with that, let's move on to our second story, which is again a cricketing story. We are talking about the Asian Under-19 Championships, which were happening. Now, we have covered this comprehensively on the show. We covered Pakistan's run as well as the the other nations that were taking part, the other international countries such as India and Sri Lanka that do take part in these tournaments. So let us begin, Ali, by talking about Pakistan in the Under-19 Championship. They unfortunately did not make the final. They lost out in the semi-finals. They were beaten by Sri Lanka, who eventually went on to lose to India in the final. That was today. What do you make of Pakistan's run? They were obviously undefeated in the group stages. Going on, they seem to have found their feet, but at this level, because they are younger players, you do see inconsistencies. But promising signs definitely for our nation that our under-19s are going and performing at this level. And bringing home trophies at this stage is not the most important thing. It's more about perhaps getting future stars.
I think under-19 is the most important team actually for grassroots cricket in particular. You talk about grassroots, you talk about talent, you talk about the future. I think under-19 is very, very important, and that's why it's good that the Pakistan Cricket Board and everybody actually gives a lot of coverage to the under-19 team. If you look at this tournament in particular, I thought Pakistan under-19 performed extremely well. They actually beat the champions who were crowned India in the group stage too, narrowly too. And I think that was a huge monkey off the back, because beating India is actually very difficult.
This seems to be a year for beating India, doesn't it, Ali?
Indeed, yeah. I mean, beating them on the national setup, beating them in the T20 World Cup in the UAE, and then beating them over here on an under-19 front. I think it's a marvelous achievement. But at the same time, winning that tournament, beating India, then obviously being undefeated in the group stage, and then making it to the semi-final. The one area I think they really need to improve is actually the knockout stages. Should it be national, but under-19 too. When it comes to the knockout stages, I think they need to be more mentally prepared. Psychologically, they need to be more prepared for it, because that is where the real crunch happens. Going into that semi-final against Sri Lanka, it was predicted that Pakistan would actually win that match, but Sri Lanka actually gave Pakistan a run for their money on a very difficult wicket, actually chasing about 148. So it was a difficult, but I think it's a good, most important thing, Sabeel, over here, it's a good learning curve for them. They know that, that going forward, that, that they made some mistakes, they couldn't win that match, they couldn't have set up a rematch with India, but hopefully going forward, they can learn from these mistakes quickly, and then when they go to the West Indies, they'll be fully prepared to actually take the world on.
Brilliant points there. It does seem to be a curse currently that we do get to the knockout stages both at the senior level and at this level after having tremendous group stages and aren't able to deliver. But under-19, it is grassroots. Let's hope these players develop given the time. Like you said, it is a curve and they are on it, and there's no reason to believe they do not improve, and they showcase some great talent. Let's talk about the final quickly then before we jump to the World Cup, the Under-19 World Cup that is. India, Sri Lanka. India now has won their 8th title overall. They are a tremendous team. They have dominated this format. There's clearly something about their system that produces results, and then they managed to convert a lot of these players into the senior setup. Credit to our neighbours then. What do you think they're doing right, and what did you make of their performance this tournament?
I think it comes down to the infrastructure of their junior infrastructure at the grassroots level is very, very good. I mean, they give a lot of importance over here. They've won the most number of World Cups, and then also this, like we mentioned earlier, in the introduction, that they've won about 8 of these Asian Cricket Council under-19 tournaments. I mean, that's a phenomenal record. They haven't let any of the other giants like the likes of Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and even Bangladesh come close to them. So, full credit to them where it's deserved. But I think there's a reason. Like I mentioned, the infrastructure, it's the mental aspect of it too, and the coaching. Actually, a lot of coaching goes into them, into their skill set, and to make sure that they're well prepared, from that early age. And that's why when they come in the international front, most of the time than not, they actually deliver the goods. So I think it comes down to the fact of how their preparation for that in the infrastructure was doing extremely good.
So definitely now let's quickly touch upon that tournament you mentioned, the Under-19 World Cup, which is coming up very soon. India, out of Asia, probably the best team. But what do you think we have to look forward to in that tournament as Pakistan? Do you see us performing against all these other international countries? And who do you think perhaps right now has the best under-19 setup that you are excited to see at that tournament?
Well, under-19 World Cup is actually, it happens every 2 years, and there's always some surprises which actually happen. The last World Cup, which took place a couple of years ago in South Africa, it was actually Bangladesh who came out on tops, beating India in that final. Pakistan themselves actually making the semi-finals too, and unfortunately losing over there. But after that, we saw some great talent which emerged, like the likes of Haider Ali, I think is one player, and then Rohil Nazir also, who plays for Northern. But the most important thing about this under-19 World Cup, is that obviously you have the big hitters over there, the big guns like the likes of India, who've done very well. You made the final 9-time record number of wins. Australia's another team. New Zealand has done well too, but mainly Australia and India are the favorites too. But the best thing about it, you always have some surprise packages. Like I mentioned, Bangladesh over there, Pakistan obviously, getting some good exposure over here. The 2006 champions, they also have a good record. They could actually do well. But it's also important how they're going to adapt and adjust to those wickets in West Indies. West Indies has uneven wickets, which could offer both the fast bowlers and to the batsmen. As long as they adapt over there to the conditions, they have a very good chance. And it's important that they learn quickly from this under-19 Asian Cricket Council tournament, so that they can go over there on full cylinders and they compete against the world.
This is very important for youth coaching, obviously, that exposure that you've mentioned, Ali, and hopefully in the West Indies our boys are able to go and perform some very exciting cricket, and there's always some surprises, even though, as you mentioned, India and Australia are probably the ones to look out for. You can, with Bangladesh proving you can never really rule anyone out. Even countries like Pakistan, who do have a good setup, can go and look to compete and get to the latter stages of that competition. Now let's move on to a segment recap of what we've just discussed, which was the Asian Under-19 Championships. In that, we have discussed not only Pakistan's run, obviously undefeated in the groups, going on to lose out in the semi-finals, and India going on to claim their 8th title and winning the final. A team that we did beat in the group stages, but unfortunately in the knockout stages, there do seem to be some issues that by the time the World Cup comes around, hopefully we have had some sort of resolution. But again, more under-19 cricket to look forward to, and a lot of young stars who are very promising, who we hope and pray do better, and in the future we get to see them at a higher senior setup. With that, let us move on to our final segment, which is the English Premier League, and that for football we do have a package, and our wonderful researchers have made a brilliant recap of the table so far and the matches that took place this week. Let's go have a look.
Manchester City have made the most of Chelsea and Liverpool's midweek slip-ups in the Premier League, with the defending champions defeating Brentford 1-0 at the Community Stadium. The visitors took the lead in the 16th minute as Foden turned it across from Kevin De Bruyne. The result sees City move on to 50 points, that is 9 more than Liverpool, and 8 ahead of Chelsea, who bottled their lead against Brighton at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea were on the brink of victory, having survived a barrage of Brighton pressure following Romelu Lukaku's first half opener. But Welbeck's dramatic leveller left them stunned and secured a deserved point for Graham Potter's side. The result is a major setback for Chelsea, who were below their best and now sit 8 points behind leaders Manchester City, having only won one of their last 4 Premier League games. Ralph Rangnick rang the changes and got a much improved performance from his Manchester United players in a 3-1 win over Burnley. The win moves United up to 6th in the Premier League table, 4 points off 4th placed Arsenal, with a game in hand. Meanwhile, Newcastle, Burnley and last placed Norwich are the teams that finished 2021 in the relegation zone.
So there you have it, folks, a complete roundup of all of this week's action. Let's discuss, Ali, Manchester City. Now, in our package there, the word bottling was mentioned. So Chelsea obviously had a chance to win a game, go clear of Liverpool by about 3 points and be the second team chasing Manchester City, which obviously is better than being third place in chasing the champions. Now, Manchester City just seems like they are impossible to chase. They won 1-0 again this week. Chelsea bottling a lead, as was mentioned. They drew 1-1 thanks to Danny Welbeck, of all people, getting an equalising goal for Brighton. What do you make of Manchester City, how they perform, not just in this game? And Chelsea, with all the injuries like Tuchel is talking about, are they realistically going to chase City, or is it going to be Liverpool City that we're genuinely going to be looking at?
Look, at this moment of time, there's only one horse race. We thought that it was going to be a 3-horse race between Chelsea, Manchester City and Liverpool, the 2020 champions. But this time it's looking a bit different. This is that time of the year, Sabeel, when you see some teams actually lifting off. This is when you can actually predict after the new year that which teams are actually really going to challenge for the title. But at this, and earlier in the season, the the big hitters, Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea were, people were actually wondering which one of the three were actually going to go for the title. But as of this moment, if you look at the table, it looks like Manchester City are, way ahead, on head and shoulders over their opponents, Liverpool and Chelsea too. The reason being is because Manchester City has been the most consistent team. I mean, they know how to grind out results. They know how to get the 3-pointers, and that's very, very important. When they have sticky matches, we have difficult matches, they get the job through. Look, they've had their problems too with COVID, a lot of players getting COVID too, some injuries too, but Pep Guardiola, why he's one of the best managers in the world, he knows how to utilize his squad. He knows how to get the best out of them. He knows how to get the 1-0 victories. His defense is impeccable. So for that reason, I have to say that Manchester City at this moment of time are looking like the real team, which probably are the clear favorites to win. Other than that, yes, Liverpool and Chelsea are part of that chasing pack too, but they're dropping too many important points. When you're chasing a team with the caliber of Manchester City, you cannot afford to drop points. And as long as if they continue to do that, there's going to be a huge gulf between Manchester City and Chelsea and Liverpool. So at this moment, it looks like Manchester City are the clear favorites, but hey, there again, we've seen some strange things in football, and it's only half of the season has finished.
Definitely, that's true. But I want to touch upon something that you said there. You said, obviously, City have had their issues with injuries, obviously with COVID. Every team has pretty much been suffering at some stage or the other. Do you think Tuchel complaining about Chelsea's injury problems with the depth Chelsea have, Guardiola kind of shows, well, if you have the depth, you can manage, because he is seeming to get results, and he does seem to play a variety of different players in a variety of different positions, but he has a system that works. Obviously, Tuchel, a great manager, but do you think that's more excuses than a genuine thing that he can say is costing him this title?
I think it's more frustration, which is actually coming out from the end of West London. Tuchel, great manager, winner of the Champions League, got the better of Pep Guardiola last year. But the problem with he hasn't been able to carry that forward in the form of consistency. Great start to the season, firing on all cylinders. But more lately, during the sticky period, which we call, which is this Christmas time, the New Year, this festive season, festive part of the year when there are lots of games come together. This is the most important juncture of the season, and while Manchester City has handled it very well, Chelsea haven't. Tuchel hasn't. Yes, he has a system, the pressing system we are talking about, but he's not getting the best out of his players. We have some the hostility from some players. I believe I think you would have read that Romelu Lukaku actually brought about this. There's some revelations that he's not happy at the club. This is their record signing over there. The player who they brought back after such a long time. So if for him to come out in public and to say that, it speaks volumes as to there probably are some problems behind the closed scenes at Chelsea too, and he needs to figure that out quickly. If you want to progress, if you want to do well and challenge for the title, your team needs, you have to rotate your squad well, but keep everybody happy so that you can get the best out of them, because it's very important time of the year.
So very true, but let's talk about that a little more, because Chelsea in the new year have Liverpool next, which is great news for Liverpool. They've got Liverpool and City are Chelsea's next 2 games in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So they've got a very tough run. That coupled with the Champions League, where these clubs will be competing in. What do you, if you're saying,
League Cup is another one.
Yeah, another domestic cups as well. So for you, City clearly favourites to win the league. But in terms of Champions League, which one of these teams do you think will provide the most challenge there, considering if City's main focus is the league, who do you think will be the team from the Premier League at least to look out for in the Champions League?
I think it's Manchester City.
Them as well, okay.
Manchester City are the favourites this year. Look, they're still licking their wounds from last year, from Portugal last year when they lost against. That was their golden opportunity. They know that this year, they need to learn from their mistakes, and they really fired up on that. That's why I think Pep Guardiola is a fantastic manager. He's kept quiet. He's kept under the wraps. He's kept all these players very fresh too, and not making a lot of noise about it, going about business. They are they obviously, they don't have the League Cup. They were knocked out of that. They're focusing on the 2 domestic, on the 1 domestic cup, the FA Cup, which starts in about 10 days time, and then other than that, the league, which they're running away with. But the Champions League is where they're going to focus the most. Okay. Other than that, you cannot rule out Liverpool, because Liverpool have been brilliant when it comes to knockout football.
Yep, that is very true. You can't rule out any of those teams. Very high quality caliber football being played by all of them. Let's now quickly discuss. Now, United, they managed to get a very impressive result against lowly Burnley last night with a 3-1 victory. Ronaldo again on the score sheet. That makes the race for the top 4 very interesting as well, and obviously it changes the dynamics at the bottom 3 for the relegation places. Moving into the new year, Ali, your final thoughts on the Premier League. I'd like to know 3 things. What do you think in terms of relegation and in terms of the top 5? You think the new year will hold for all of these teams? Number 2, your manager and player of the season thus far. And number 3, your surprise of the season so far.
Well, up till now, I think that if you're talking about relegation, I think Norwich are definitely going down. It's interesting to see about Newcastle. They've been taken over by this by the Saudi takeover, which has actually happened over there, and they have new investment. So I think they should survive, but it's still very difficult because it's still early days. But
I have January to make transfers.
They have January and they're going to invest very heavily because they don't want to actually be relegated. So I think Norwich are definitely going down over there. Leeds is another team, which needs to be very careful.
Yeah, they're not too far from the bottom.
They're not too far from the bottom too. And I think Brentford should be okay. I think they've been playing some brilliant football.
And your top 5?
And the top 5, definitely Manchester City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. I think that should be the order. Number 4, I'm still going to go with Manchester United.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I say that is because Manchester United will do everything to secure Champions League football. And I think their fixtures are going to get earlier. Ronaldo is going to find form again. Ralph Rangnick is going to find the right system. So I think they should get top 4. And then 5 is going to be a difficult between Arsenal and West Ham. But I genuinely think Arsenal are going to go big time and they're going to pip out West Ham for that.
Are those 2 teams your surprises of the season, Arsenal and West Ham, how well they've done and outdone expectations?
Arsenal definitely. West Ham did had a very good season last year. I believe they finished 6th. But I think Arsenal have been brilliant. They had a poor start, losing their first 3 games, let's not forget. But they bounced back extremely well. I thought Arteta got a lot of criticism, but I still think they have enough in their baggage to actually finish 5th.
And your player of the year so far and your manager of the year will probably be Guardiola, but I'll ask anyway.
Guardiola, definitely. He's been brilliant the way he's handled the situation. If you asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said Tuchel, but Guardiola gone about his business extremely well. And I'd say that for player of the year, that's an interesting one, but I have to give it to Salah. I think Salah has been phenomenal, one of the best players in the world, getting plenty of goals. You can't look past him. I think Salah, closely followed up by, I think, Bernardo Silva. I think he's been brilliant.
Those are very fair shouts. Bernardo Silva, obviously an immense player, and Salah, his numbers speak for themselves, and if you watch him play, it's even more impressive beyond the numbers. So quickly, your last point for today, what do you think is a transfer target for Newcastle? Do you think they're looking to strengthen up at the back or more so in midfield? I
think they have to strengthen everywhere. Look, you're talking about avoiding relegation. You're coming up against quality teams. They have to strengthen, yes, in the midfield. The midfield battle is very important, as you would know. You want to win title, you want goals, you have to strengthen that midfield, but at the back too. So I think they're going to go full force, going to see whoever's in the market, go for that player and make sure that they pay the really good wages, secure their services so they can do the most important thing, and that is survive relegation.
Fair enough. Ali, Mehdi, thank you so much for joining us here on Sports Extra. With that, we will move to our segment recap of our final segment, which was football and the English Premier League. So we'll move on to our segment recap, where we discussed Chelsea now being 8 points behind City, with Liverpool obviously being further behind. Manchester City have extended the league lead at the top. The race for the top 4 and 5 obviously has heated up as well, with Manchester United, West Ham and Arsenal all vying for those places. Relegation does seem like Norwich will not be able to escape it, even though points wise it is realistic. The way they are performing suggests otherwise. And Tuchel has been complaining about injury problems and other issues at Chelsea, but every club this year does seem to have been hit by some issues or the other due to COVID, if not injuries. So with that takes care of our segment recap. To all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us, not just today, but for the entirety of this year. We look forward to welcoming you on Monday for our first show of 2022. With that, we wish you an early Happy New Year, and thank you and goodbye.